Committee to order. With that being said, discuss advertising for the police station project. So I know that the signs are up or going, but there's still, how many do you have
Yeah,
left?
so we've just got our second shipment of another 100 today.
Perfect.
Yeah, so we're working on getting those out. And that should be probably the extent of it, is it's 200 signs as far as the signs go. And our mailer already went out.
All right, so if anybody needs any sign locations or knows of any sign locations, please let Mark or Ben know. I have a couple more too, so.
Mary Brown would like a sign. She's running late, stuck in traffic.
Does she really want a sign?
Yeah.
Oh,
Good.
okay. What about at the grandfather's too? Do you know if they'll put it in there?
You can ask her.
Yeah, all right.
Carlton
Cause that'd
first
be
movie.
good, right down at the bottom of,
Mail.
and
Travis Bowie's, if she could ask Travis Bowie, right there in the corner of High and High and South Main. Do you see her at all, Charlotte?
I could,
That'd be a great spot.
yeah.
yeah, so if you see any more, signs, or if you know of any more sign locations, and just let Ben and, Mark know, that would be great.
Have they ever had, like, people stand out, like, on a Saturday morning, like Four Corners and up here, and, you know, the signs to bring people's attention to the town meeting?
That would be this Saturday,
Yeah,
that we would have to do.
yeah, I'm saying, is that something that people would do? Or
I think it's kinda,
it draws attention to the project, I
I
don't know.
wanna see you on the corner.
I did that once. Robbie
It's
hasn't
just a
done that.
suggestion.
Robbie hasn't
No, I
done that.
hear you.
Charlie
I just-
hasn't done that. They're guys that should do that.
So I think, obviously, you know, those are things that we could have planned had we have known that this was gonna be, disruptive along the path. But now to get a whole bunch of people out there, I mean, it's gonna look
3 or 4.
futile if, yeah, it's not, visually it won't,
So it's
you know what I mean, like cause you're gonna have to divide between East Freetown and Assonet, and if we only have 6 people, then we're talking about a person on the corner. I wish, had we have known, we probably could have planned for that.
When did the mailers go out? Because I know our office admin is from Freetown. She already got it, so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
well,
delivered them to the
7th.
post office on the 6th.
6th, and we mailed out 7th.
You're gonna get them by the 7th.
So the police association one came out, well, we got ours yesterday, and the finance committee postcard came out a couple of days prior to that.
Prior to it, yeah.
So it was kinda good that that you guys waited
Yeah.
and put it out second, cause I think it has more of an impact. Like, look, I understand that this came out, but this is the way we wanna do things.
Right.
So, the other thing is that, we all need to be on the same page and have the same message. Because if we don't and we start going off on tangents, it's not gonna work. We all really need to stick to the script and like promote this the way we think that this should be promoted. In speaking with Kim, and I know Kim and the town administrator have worked really hard over the numbers. Regardless of what the finance committee is saying, it is not doable at all, not doable. So, you know, they're gonna be writing an impact statement, and they will be talking about that on town meeting floor.
Yeah, so that's really critical, that perhaps one voice starts with a presentation about the numbers, and then other people can add to that,
So let's,
instead of like being all diffused amongst a bunch of people.
let's all be on the same page right now, and let's go over how we think this meeting should progress. I think that's a really good way to, you know, so we all know that this is a script and this is what we're going by. So
What is the script? What are we,
That's what we're saying
we're still
right now.
going with 6.5?
6 point, yeah, that's
Okay,
not changed.
that hasn't-
Nothing has
alright.
changed. 6.5 and the debt exclusion, and that's what we all voted on. That's the way we should all, I mean, my feeling is, and we can take another vote if you want, but I feel like this is the path that we've been going on. Your mailers came out saying the same thing, I mean,
That's what the question says also. That's what
It's what
the
the
article
question-
says, the question says.
everything. So to have this come out at the last minute, and I guess what's more than upsetting, and and you and I have talked about this, is to have somebody on the side of me who's the chair of the finance committee, shake my hand and say, I think this is something that we can support.
I saw that.
And then all of a sudden change at the last minute and do this to the townspeople is disgusting in my view. So, anyway, so let's go over how we feel like town meeting should go. I think that,
Well,
go ahead.
so the moderator is gonna control
Mhm.
what can be delivered in terms of information at the beginning, but I would envision a presentation. I don't know if that'll incorporate the video, if the moderator will let us do that, but
So
What do-
usually when we did the school thing, we did the video or a PowerPoint presentation. We weren't that fortunate to have a video, but we did a PowerPoint presentation beforehand. So I think some of these people are coming to this meeting for the very first time, and I think, Andy, we need to start off with that video.
Do you make the motion first, or is it, or is that the moderator's discretion?
Well, let me just back up 1 second. Aponequid High School, are you anticipating a large crowd where we'll be using the cafeteria? And will they have set up the ability for people in the cafeteria to view what's going on in the auditorium?
I mean, we can have both places set up. The reason why we're having it at Aponequid is because it's the larger space.
Right.
And we had the ability to pack in all those people from the water meeting without any worries, so, I mean, but
All
I
right,
think that
okay.
I think let's be a step ahead and have the cafeteria ready.
I think
It's also the AV section of it,
on that, there was a little bit of an overflow into the cafeteria.
yeah.
But,
I don't think there had to be, though. I think it was more people with children
Right.
that they put in there that, I think we had the room if we didn't have that issue. But the AV is the other nice thing about it. The whole thing, the whole presentation comes off nice with that AV setup.
So nice, yeah.
Where
We already have it down pat, too.
when we did it in the elementary school, it was kind of hard to see the screen. It was all kinds of issues with it, so.
Right.
I think that was,
So, we'll start off, we'll talk to Mike beforehand, we have a warrant review meeting next week, so we'll start off and we'll know. But just say, he says, start with the motion, then we'll do the motion. But I think he's gonna say, let's start off with the presentation, cause I think that's where the motions are all gonna get all dismantled, so.
Okay.
If we start off with the presentation, then as soon as the presentation's over, then somebody should put into motion according to, whatever they wanna do.
So in terms of the presentation, it'll be some opening remarks perhaps by one or more of the board members?
I think, so we can do it the way we did before and say, this is how we've gotten to this point, and then do that. And then I think, Carlton, I don't wanna say this is on your shoulders, but this really is for you and for your men. So I think that you need to be the one in the forefront to stand up and say why this is important. I mean, I know we're gonna do the video and everything, but I think people need to hear from you. You're the police chief of the town of Freetown. And I think that you need to set the tone. That's, how does everybody, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't have a problem.
Yeah.
That's what we typically see is opening remarks from, maybe the town administrator or the building committee chair, and then the chief would say something too as well. And, obviously, we would be there, and Andy as well, for any questions that come up.
I think that, after that, so say we do the presentation and then, I think you should make the motion. So I think you need to be ready to make that.
When do you anticipate the questions about money coming in?
Right after that.
then we start discussion.
And then we start
That's what we call it?
discussion.
Discussion.
I know that David has an impact statement or a statement to read. And then there's also an impact statement coming from the town accountant and David, reviewing why this is not the right way to go. Why not, out of straight budget is not the right way to go.
Is there a way that we can put up a slide that just shows and just, that'll pretty much take care of it if you just do it with a slide with everything right there for people to see all at once?
Yep, David's gonna work on one more slide to put at the end of the end, so, through a PowerPoint, he'll have one more slide to put up.
And is that gonna show the impact of this proposed approach? That slide, as compared to,
Oh, yeah,
That
that'd be a good
inclusion?
idea, actually.
I mean, if you showed both of those.
Right, because we have in there now what it looks like doing the ban and the debt exclusion.
Yeah, I was just thinking
Maybe
about
put
the impact on your budget if you didn't do the debt exclusion.
Right, that's what
Right.
they.
Right,
That's what-
but then, yeah, but then you can do it however you wanna do it, I
Yeah.
mean, that's, I just think if it's untenable, it'll show itself.
Yep,
The questions come up about when, shouldn't the town
They are.
answer those
Mhm.
questions? Because I think people
yep,
will,
absolutely,
they usually trust.
absolutely.
Usually.
Rather than trust the selectmen.
Yep.
Okay.
They don't trust the town administrator.
So David and Kim will be answering those questions.
One thing to keep in mind, before you guys are able to make the motion, the moderator wants to put forth what the finance committee's recommendation is.
Mhm.
Right.
So, I'm not sure if you're gonna get an opportunity to make your motion before he's gonna ask for them. And they're not going to just say they support or not support, I'm sure they're going to wanna get right into their spiel.
So after they do their because Mike always does, looks over to the corner and says, what's your recommendation? And then they're gonna probably pontificate and say that the finance committee recommends, but only this way. Then I think that right after that is when we need to jump in with a motion to go according to what the police station subcommittee and what the board of selectmen's plan is.
No, they could jump in with their own.
They could.
motion, right?
No, they'll probably have somebody else do it from the audience.
Before all that though, if allowed, the presentation, that's not the key about doing the presentation first, because the slides are in the presentation.
Right.
And it's not different than the presentation we've been making for
True.
a month, so.
Right,
It's gonna be an added slide we can sneak in there and
right at the end.
right at the end, and you're the expert on that. She could come right up at that point in time as part of the presentation, correct? Yes?
Whatever they want.
That would solve the problem.
Well, who's gonna call, at some point, he's gonna call the question.
Yeah.
And then he's gonna read the article
That's right.
and call the question,
Right.
give the recommendations and call the question. That's when a motion can get made. And then it is what it is after that.
So there'll be some of us will be on the stage, but I'm gonna ask that there be chairs in front of is there enough room for a table? Yeah, cause we have the table in front of the stage, right? So if Carlton's sitting there with the rest of the building committee, Taylor, Andy, Rick, you know what I mean? If they're all on that end of the in front, then there's a microphone right in front, you can step in right away.
I'll have to wait for him to read the article
Right.
though.
Hmm?
Okay.
Would've been helpful to invite him to this meeting to see how he was planning on doing it.
I'm not sure,
But either way, there's another meeting, right?
yes. Yes, and as soon as that meeting's over, I will send an email to everybody.
And you're going to representing the police subcommittee?
Yeah. Do you wanna go to that meeting with me?
When is it?
It's at 2:00 on Tuesday,
Yeah.
2 on Tuesday.
the assessor's office.
What meeting is that? Is
The
that-
review, the warrant review meeting.
Warrant review.
But if, one thing that bothers me is that the finance committee whatever George presents, if it's not a vote by the finance committee, he has to qualify that and say, this is my opinion. That's the thing,
Mhm.
you know?
Right.
Well, I think some people have called him on that in the past, right? Is this your opinion, or is this
We called them on that, the water department called them on that.
Right.
Because there was no meeting, and he was up here in front of the board of selectmen.
Yeah, maybe the
This is on a different
moderator,
issue now.
maybe the moderator should do that. Like, what is the opinion of the finance committee? Not, just for clarification, Mr. Grenwell, this is the finance committee, not personal. But I don't know if the moderator would do that.
Isn't the question though, do they recommend or not recommend is the question? And then after that,
Yeah,
It should be after the questions. Any other comments after that, to me, should be after the question's read.
Yeah, because it would have to be an amendment.
It's part of discussion.
well, we need to see what the moderator's gonna do,
I mean,
but generally, yeah, so is it,
it's a yes or no question that's
Right.
asked. That's by statute. Is it approved, is it recommended or not
and
recommended?
then during the discussion period is when they would present,
Their opinion and
Right.
why they came up with their decision.
but we'll see what.
So we've got to get that motion in first then to get to the discussion period at that point. in time.
Right.
Either way, the other.
Yeah.
There's no question that, they're gonna say, well, you said before that you could do the water line out of the budget, why is this different? There are differences, it was a 2.5%, budget, I mean, a 2.5% interest rate. It was a $5 million project, or 4 plus, a 4, but with, they carried the interest into that, so they call it 5, I call it 4. There was a potential that we could get a revenue from that, and to spend down on some of that, had people had tied into it, and, you know, so there are certainly a lot of differences. Plus it was for the, you know, for the overall, whatever other projects, senior center or library that would have gone over there. So there are a lot of differences, so, you know, I think that I can answer some of those questions as well.
Well-
So I'm not really worried about that.
Well, one of the things that I think is, his premise that we're going to get added revenue from these sources is, well, the Stop and Shop were on the last year of the TIF, but am I not correct?
So next year, there's gonna be an additional 600,000 that's coming in from revenue.
Okay,
But that's basically already committed to
Right,
the
yeah.
already
right, yeah,
existing
Right.
contractual obligations and
Right,
increases.
right. And then Amazon is
Not.
not a factor. And the idea of American and these other things, that's a possibility, but it's not
It's not
anything,
something you can budget
nothing,
for at
nothing
this
that you're
point.
gonna budget for, because, I mean,
I'm saying they move on it in 6 months,
Right.
8 months.
well,
So they wanna do a 10-year, they're trying to do this in 10 years, trying to pay this off in 10 years.
That's never gonna happen.
So,
That's impossible.
so $6 million
Pardon me?
over 20 years
Yeah.
would be over 300K a year, right? And they want to squeeze it into a 10-year period, so you're looking at over $600,000 each year.
What was the first year for the payout? 5 something?
For the 20-year.
Right, right.
It's 585 for the first year.
So 20 years, 585 for the first year.
That's for 20 years. So you're
Right.
around $1 million for 10 years.
why would we want to
Get that money. There's no way, it's impossible for their idea to work.
I know that.
But they, apparently, they did a finance.
Are you trying to say
Are you
you're,
open for questions on
E-
that?
Even if it does work to a certain extent in the beginning, it leaves us with no fallback position. though.
Exactly,
If
so
something falls apart,
Right.
we're
Right.
screwed.
Right.
snow is always one of those things that is easy to look at, right? So
That's right.
snow, we can always like recap the following year. If we have a blizzard this year or whatever, we're already going up on our budget next year. So we have to start looking at, if we lay people off, every time you lay a person off, it's 1.5% on top of what they already make. So, I mean, you're already adding to your budget just in case these things happen. Rick, you wanna say something?
Yeah, well, just a couple of things. I think they've committed just by virtue of this writing that they support the new police station.
Yes,
And they
that's
support
an
that it
important
should be
point.
built. And I think that's important to make that clear. They just don't support, they feel that there's a different way to finance it, but how is it possible to bond off anticipated revenue? I don't think it is.
No.
Right, because it's, you know, you're going to the bank and saying, look, I wanna borrow $6.5 million, and I think that these guys are gonna move in.
I
and-
might
and
get a
they're gonna
raise.
pay rent.
Yeah.
And they're gonna say, well, you're gonna have to capitalize it somehow.
I might get a new career in which I'll be doubling my money.
Exactly.
Yeah,
There's
Like
a
exactly.
building
sergeant
a
position
house
coming
and
open.
saying, I think I'm gonna get a raise next year and hope I can pay for it.
I think I'm gonna get a job next year.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So to me, it's just very confusing.
Have you ever seen this in
Never,
all?
never. It's, you're committing to $6.5 million, and, which is, you know, a great sum of money, and it's for a great cause. But as a taxpayer, you need to know that that's secured somehow, and that it's continual. That's why, you know, you use a Prop 2.5 override. You don't gamble on tax revenue.
Right.
It doesn't make any
Yeah,
sense.
I was thinking about it further too, and I don't even think we would be able to sign the contract, because your construction contract has to be signed knowing that the funds are in place.
Well, you'd have to bond off of.
Yeah, it would
You'd have to have the bond
But
in
you can't,
place.
you can't, yeah.
How do you get the
can't that,
bond?
So,
Unless you're capitalizing against something else, because it can't be anticipated revenue, I don't think.
Would you be able to qualify for the bond, Kim, if we didn't have the 2.5 override?
Well,
To borrow 60,
the issue
6.5?
is, it's gonna have to go through the financial advisor, it's gonna go through the rating agencies. You are going to be up against a hurdle if it's part of your existing levy, because there are all these unforeseen circumstances that happen. You could end up with a higher bond rate
I was just
because
gonna
of
say,
that.
it
If
raises your
you-
bond rate.
Oh,
Yeah, it's more risky for investors. If they know that there's a 2.5 exclusion, then they know that you can get
It's
the
committed.
revenue to pay for that.
Yeah.
It's a lot less risky, and people are willing to invest and buy your bonds, so.
This, I think you need to stress this, I'm not an accountant, and I'm not a treasurer, but it sure looks irresponsible to me. As Taylor said, you can't sign contracts unless you have commitments. So
Well, I think that's a really important fact to state that.
Makes sense.
yeah, I mean, the contract and any payments that go out, the, you know, town accountant has to sign off on all that the funds are there and available.
Anything else to add?
Well, I think that, you know, their first bullet is just all telling. They believe in this project. They believe that it should be built. And it's their fiduciary responsibility, or their responsibility to be finding the correct way for the town to finance this. And they haven't done their job as far as I'm concerned.
So I think they're thinking, like, at one point, we had a litigation against us, and the town paid for fly ash, and we had a certain amount of money that we'd pay every year. It was $200,000. It was a $2 million penalty, and we paid a little bit every year. I think that's their thinking, and I also think that their thinking is that, well, you put money in stabilization and capital stabilization, so instead of putting money on that, you should put it towards the police station. I'm not saying that we don't have the ability to do that if we can to help, but if something happens, we don't have, that's not there. We don't, that's not something that we can commit to for, you know, for the 20 years.
It's speculatory. How do you borrow against speculation? They're speculating that the money will be there, but how can you prove that it will be? And how does a borrower or a lender say, okay, we believe you? I mean, it's a 20-year bond or a 10-year bond.
No, it's up in the market, it's definitely gonna impact the
Well,
interest rate.
American just broke ground, so, and they're going with, what, 30,000 square feet?
30,000 square feet.
So they're $1 a square foot, so there's $30,000. That's not money that's gonna be spent down on this. Again, I know Charlie just brought up, Amazon is 100%, right now for 4 years or 5 years?
Well, you're not gonna get another pay increase from Amazon till 2022, and it's only 231,000.
Right, so, again,
I think you look at it as if the town does get any windfall from any of these companies, you pay down the debt.
right, that's
Right.
exactly
I mean,
it.
yeah.
You know, you use it to pay it down right away, and then you're,
There are issues with that, depending on whether you've already permanently bonded. You can't prepay if you've permanently bonded, but if
Okay.
we still have a ban, yeah, that's,
If-
that's I
Right,
think
especially in the beginning.
folks are in
Yep.
favor of doing. It's gonna take, what, at least 18 months or 2 years to complete this project. So until everything is final, you're not gonna permanently bond. You would be in a ban situation. You could make additional payments down on that, so
Yeah.
that would be great. And
It's
and I
just
think
interest
that's.
Once it's done, it goes to a bond, and that's it.
Right, you wouldn't be able to do anything until at least halfway through the bond, and you could do a refunding and you know, refinance it at that point if it made sense.
The other thing is that this also potentially could do a backdoor 2.5 permanent override. So if we have to start cutting budgets and people don't want their budgets cut, then we're gonna have to go for a Prop 2.5. And that Prop 2.5 is forever and can go to any department. It doesn't necessarily have to go to one department or the other. So that's, you know, that's another scary thought. I'm not saying that we're ever gonna get to that point, but we don't know, right? So we have to be ready for that too.
I wouldn't mention that because you're not gonna get support from the townspeople for it.
No.
No, you're not.
Proposition 2.5 will never pass.
Not at all.
No way out.
Not at all. I
They've
don't
never
think so
passed in the
either.
past.
But what I'm saying is,
To avoid it,
to avoid, yeah.
to avoid even having
If
that
you fund it,
specter.
if you fund it in 2
Yeah.
years, 3 years from now, something catastrophically happens, we either have to lay off
People don't even know.
half departments
Yeah.
or have a 2.5 override. And
And we don't want that.
Nobody
That's
wants
why-
that.
That's why the debt exclusion is the.
And then you'd really be in trouble because it wouldn't pass. I'm telling you.
Right.
This town would not.
it would
pass.
gut the
No.
town.
No, it
You're-
would,
you're most
yeah,
certainly right.
absolutely, so that's a scary thought. Andy, you have anything? Poor
No.
Andy's head spinning. Andy was like, wait, I thought we were just gonna do the police station without this.
No, just a question about where Dave's slide's gonna go.
Well, we figured at the end, right?
Yeah,
Right after the financial slide.
Yeah, but in the video or in the PowerPoint?
no, we'll just do a separate
It's
one.
probably part of the PowerPoint.
Yeah. No, not part of the video.
Okay,
Could you slide it in part of the video? How hard would that be?
well, I need it soon.
Because in the video, you have that page where it breaks down 31 cents per thousand and all that right on the page. If the next page was, if you don't use this option, you go with this option, it would kind of make sense in the video, if that's doable.
And this is completely public, everyone has this
Yeah.
now, so it's not like a surprise if you saw it in the video.
No. It's answering the question that's raised by the finance committee.
In the financial presentation, I think it'd be good to break down what the average household, well, the average assessment for a household is 300,000. A few. Can't we-
3095.
Okay. Like I say, I do round figures. But to get it down to what it would cost per day is, I think, something that people are gonna see how ridiculous. I mean, it's like 30, I believe.
22 cents, I think.
Yeah, it was $10 a month.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's something that's really ridiculous, where it's, I mean, some people say, oh, it's only a cup of coffee and so forth, that type of thing. I don't know if we wanna do that, but I think people should see that, hey, that's what my taxes are gonna go up per day. And when you get it down to the least common denominator, I think that's the clearest. The other thing I think we could do a little bit is, in anticipation of some of the questions, like, I've had a couple of people talk to me about the size of the community room. And when I tell them what it's there for, they're like, oh, well, that's a really good idea. And so I think if we have a little bit of anticipation of those questions, if we answer them at the beginning of the discussion, so to speak, it would ease people's minds, because they're gonna have those commonly asked questions answered right away. Another thing was on the gym. Why do they need a gym? Well, what is the gym really is.
It's a room.
It's an empty
Just an
room.
empty
Right, it's
room
an
that they
empty
buy
room.
equipment
Right,
for.
yeah, it's an empty room. It's, whatever the square footage is.
And I think
Um,
if somebody asks that question again.
One of us will take it.
Whoever's in the
Alright.
police association should answer that question. Look, we're gonna take it upon ourselves to buy the equipment, it's just a room.
And then somebody said, we were laughing, Taylor, about, well, they only had 3,000 square feet, why do they need, say, 12,000 square feet? And the thing is that it was built,
Program dictated.
yeah, it was built so,
Yeah, it was undersized.
it
at
was
the
so
beginning.
undersized as it was.
And it was
Built for the-
obsolete the day it opened for us.
It was
so-
built for the 5 full-timers that were on there.
Actually, it was 10. but-
10, I'm sorry.
Can we go back to the gym for a moment? I don't know if you've had a lot of discussion or opposition, and I apologize, I haven't been to any of the forums, but, You know, one of the big arguments that we traditionally have when people say, why can't you just go to the gym down the street? Yes, the worst situation you could possibly have if you're an officer and you're working in a public gym and you may have just, pulled over this person next to you, or, had an incident with a family member across the gym. And this is a location where the officers really need to release. They need to exercise to help them release and have some quiet time by themselves. And they don't need to be out like they're at the supermarket.
A couple of points. The office, it's a room, it's a workout room, it's an empty room. The police association will fund treadmills, et cetera. And there's all kinds of correlations to police longevity and working out. But the police officers are not gonna be in the workout room while they're being paid by the taxpayers. It's gonna be before the shift or after the shift. We will not, there's no way we're gonna tolerate somebody being paid to work out.
State police do, boss.
So it's a room.
Check your contract, I don't think it's a.
And the police union is gonna
What
pay to have
contract?
certain
Well, that's
equipment.
We haven't got one at the moment.
See,
It's
told
pretty
you wasn't in
easy,
it.
it's a no-brainer,
That's another discussion for another
Yeah,
time.
I've heard the same questions that Charlie has. Why is it so big? Why do we need the community room? Those are the anticipated questions.
And
But the video
It's gonna
shows the
show,
size of other,
exactly. It's gonna show.
so you wanna look at Lakeville, let's look at Lakeville, but add in the outbuilding, that's for storage and cars, et cetera.
Right.
But, when people have been coming in for the tour, I talk about the site and the advantages and disadvantages. And one of the disadvantages to the site is, about 1.8 million, close to $2 million in site prep, okay? That wasn't happening in Dayton and Middleborough and Lakeville and Westport. All of those sites were fairly flat and clear. So, that's the disadvantage, and that's a significant cost, right? But the advantages outweigh that. The central location, the proximity to the elementary school in the event there's an emergency. We've got the
fact
paths
that
to come
town
in,
owns
we
the
can
land.
respond quickly, so we looked at all of that, and that's why we came up with the site and the cost and.
And we also owned it. We have to go out and
Yeah.
buy a site.
So, so some
many years
people
was
have
that?
asked me
Yeah,
like,
about
well,
2
isn't
years?
there another location? Well, yeah, in the center of town, there are locations, but what are we gonna do? Are we gonna take somebody's property by eminent domain when we already have a piece of property? Nonsensical,
And we did explore other areas. We reached out to the Hawes family, the land across from the fire station, and it wasn't suitable. We had wetland issues there. They took too much soil. It wasn't suitable.
And
So-
I think Jack had a report, not only was it the wetlands, but, I don't know, some,
There was some wildlife.
some kind
Right.
of
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Probably turtles.
turtle or,
Yes,
you know,
exactly
my
what
God,
I
we'd
say,
be
yeah.
tied up for
Spotted salamander.
20 years with it. Yeah, it's all good.
I don't think it'll be hard to answer the questions because, we've been doing this for over a year now and it's coming from a place of a lot of work and dedication to this, so I don't think we're gonna be tripped up by much.
We've asked all these same questions ourselves in these different meetings
Yeah.
over the last 2 years.
Right.
Well, we also have it covered in our material, both the video and the PowerPoint. The reason we bring the PowerPoint is so we can answer questions by slide, and we can use that as a visual aid while we're answering the questions.
And Lisa, if you could, when you talk to Mike for that meeting, it'd be nice for us, for the board to be able to make their presentation and then have a Q&A, not about finances, Q&A of all those other questions. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And then, once all those questions are answered, we can go into the financials and
Yeah,
And
that's a
deal
good
with all
way
the
to
financials,
separate it, otherwise you're bouncing back and forth.
And
it
you,
gets-
and
yeah.
people are just gonna line up and it's all gonna be about financials all night and they're not gonna get the essence of, why we need it, what we're doing, and get those other questions answered.
So we'll be in the auditorium unless we have to move?
Same room as last time, I believe.
So,
in the high school
well,
auditorium.
just
Yeah,
saying
we
maybe
won't
set
have
up,
to move, no, we'll stay there, that's where we'll all be set up. But if there's like overflow from the people at the end of the line, they may have to go to the cafeteria.
but we'll have that same AV set up where we can control the
Mm-hmm.
PowerPoint.
Same thing. You'll be right there. You're gonna have to walk down to the front though after you're done, or put a microphone back there for you. What would you be more comfortable doing?
Well, we can play the video, and then I think the remote could work for the PowerPoint. So
Okay,
if that works, from there, I could come down with the remote and still be able to control the slides.
Yeah, that'd be good with you down with us.
yeah.
You do it that way.
Yeah, so I could just start the video, then walk down, then walk up, shut it off, get the PowerPoint up, and then just come down with a remote.
All right, I think that, you know, design-wise, you would probably answer those, I think that between you and Taylor and Rick, you know to answer all the questions about the building.
The
I mean,
technical question.
Yeah, all of that stuff. I think anything police-related has to come from Carlton and you guys. Financial would come from David and Kim, and then anything else would come from the board and any other building committee members. What do you think?
Sounds
Game
good.
plan?
That's about,
Game plan.
I mean, we don't know what's gonna happen. Lately, anybody's been coming up with all kinds of amendments on town meeting floor, so we have to just be ready for anything that can happen. But I think that, look, like you said, we've been doing this for almost 2 years now. We haven't like moved from our line, and now, you know, I think that we just have to stay steadfast to the end. Anything else? All right.
What time are you gonna show up?
Me?
we have the meeting's at 7, correct?
Mhm.
And what time we scheduling for the
6.
6 o'clock for the selectmen / subcommittee meeting, right?
Right, so if anything comes up, again, we've asked the finance committee to be here tonight. George is on vacation, he said he's available remote, and so,
So say that again, at 6, we're meeting before the town meeting, okay.
we'll, you know, tell the finance committee again that we're meeting right before our meeting, should they wanna participate, or maybe they might even change their mind between now and then, who knows? But we'll extend an invitation that we're meeting.
Absolutely. I invited him to the last selectmen's meeting also.
Yeah.
Is the chairman gonna be on vacation for the meeting, or is he gonna be
I
chairman of
don't
the
know.
finance committee?
I don't know,
What do you don't know?
do you know that?
I don't believe so, though. I think he said he was just going down for the long weekend.
Okay, do you have a motion to adjourn?
No other business in front of the board? That's it?
So, do we have a motion?
We did, actually, we have the order of conditions, it was approved by the CONSCON, and it needs to be filed, I don't know if you're gonna do that, or,
Yeah, Andy's engineer is taking care of that.
all right.
But yeah, the meeting went great. We didn't have any major issues, so it was approved very quickly.
And there was a mention that we may need, or we're going to need a site plan review.
Yes, we will.
Absolutely will. Over 10,000 square feet, you need a site plan review. It's a major.
So the coordination of that is starting to get that in place.
All right, have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in
Beat ya.
favor? Okay.
Aye.